All right, let's unpack this. It's a really staggering demographic picture. For so long, we've kind of had this basic idea, maybe a misconception, that women make up the majority of the world's population.
Right. But the data, it just tells a completely different story.
It really does.
And that observation, the economist Amartya Sen famously noted it, it's an uncomfortable place to start, really.
Mm-hmm.
When you actually look at the global birth data, the imbalance is, well, it's shocking. We're not talking small variations here.
No.
Demographers estimate something like over 160 million potential women and girls are just gone, missing from
Yeah.
the population in Asia alone.
160 million. That number just, it stops you, doesn't it?
It does.
Which is why, our mission today is to really dig into this phenomenon, the missing women, and not just see it as like a cultural quirk in some places.
Exactly. It's way more complex. It looks like a result of, well, rapid technological change hitting these deep-seated economic pressures.
Yeah, and one expert we looked at even compares how this imbalance spread and the instability it causes to like an epidemic.
It's a powerful comparison.
Yep.
And to really get the scale of this crisis, we first need to understand the baseline, like what's natural.
Okay.
For as long as we've counted births, the natural human sex ratio at birth, the SRB, it's remarkably stable. It's about 105 boys for every 100 girls.
Right. Slightly more boys.
Yeah, but that slight edge for boys at birth usually gets balanced out later. Males tend to have slightly higher early mortality rates. Darwin saw similar things in animal populations.
So historically, it kind of evens out, bringing the overall population ratio closer to 50-50.
Pretty much. But those natural checks, they're just completely overwhelmed now.
The modern skew is, it's severe.
Yeah.
I mean, to give you a sense of this, the sources mention specific birth ratios that are just unnatural.
Yeah.
Azerbaijan is at 115 boys per 100 girls, Georgia 118, and Armenia is at an unbelievable 120 boys per 100 girls.
Wow, 120, that's extreme.
It really is.
And what's fascinating, or maybe worrying, is how widespread this is now. We often think of East and South Asia, right? China, India, South Korea, Vietnam.
That's the common association.
But it's firmly rooted in West Asia, too. Like those Caucasus countries you just listed, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia.
And that group is incredibly diverse, isn't it? You've got Muslim majority Azerbaijan, Orthodox Christian Georgia, Armenian Christian Armenia, different politics, different histories.
Totally different contexts.
Yeah.
So if it's not purely about one religion or, some single deep-seated regional culture, what's the common thread?
Right. What ties these places together and leads to such a rapid and similar demographic shift?
It really seems to boil down to the quick arrival of the technology, hitting at the same time as the economic stresses of modernization.
Which brings us to this development paradox, yeah.
Exactly. The old sociological assumption was, okay, as countries get richer, life gets better for women, their status improves, and things become more balanced.
It makes intuitive sense.
But it's just been proven wrong here. Completely wrong in this context.
South Korea is such a key example, I think.
It really is.
I mean, South Korea achieved massive economic success, became this wealthy, industrialized nation, part of the OECD.
Right, developed by any standard.
But that really skewed sex ratio at birth. It stuck around right through all that development. The wealth gave people the means to select, but it didn't change the underlying preference for sons.
Precisely. The idea that, educated women in a wealthy country would suddenly start preferring girls, or at least be neutral.
Yeah.
It was just an assumption. And as one Korean sociologist put it, that assumption turned out to be wrong.
It's wild when you contrast it with the past, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, historically, people tried all sorts of things. Aristotle apparently recommended tying off the left testicle to guarantee a son.
Yeah, and the Talmud suggested timing orgasms. Bizarre stuff.
Yeah.
And totally ineffective, obviously.
Obviously. But then, fast forward to the last, 3-4 decades?
And all that uncertainty just vanishes. Gone. Thanks mostly to two key technologies.
Okay, what are they?
First, ultrasound. It actually came from sonar technology for navigation.
Right, like for submarines.
Exactly. And it was initially meant for medicine to monitor high-risk pregnancies. But it was relatively cheap, easy to use.
Does it spread everywhere?
It quickly became the main way worldwide just to find out the sex in the fetus.
And the other one? Amniocentesis.
Yeah, amnio. That played a big part, too. It was introduced in India in government hospitals like AIMS back in '75. Officially, it was for checking fetal abnormalities.
Right.
But doctors quickly realized and started widely using it just to pinpoint the sex. with almost perfect accuracy.
And this technology arrived just as birth rates were starting to fall anyway, right?
Yes, so families were having fewer kids overall,
Yeah.
making the sex of each child seem even more critical to some, and people got really sort of captivated by this new scientific certainty.
Certainty fueled by some pretty harsh economic realities, it seems.
Oh, definitely. There was clear financial pressure. You look at some Indian ads from the 1980s promoting sex determination.
Yeah.
They were incredibly blunt.
How blunt?
Well, one famous one just said, better 500 rupees now than 500,000 later.
Wow, just explicitly linking the cost of the test to avoiding a massive dowry payment down the line.
Exactly. Making it seem like a simple financial calculation.
But here's where it gets really complicated and frankly quite unsettling. This idea of the woman's choice paradox. The sources point out that the decision to abort a female fetus, it's often made by the woman herself or maybe her mother-in-law. It's not always just men forcing the issue.
It's a really deep contradiction, isn't it? Many women might say they'd prefer a daughter, for their soft nature or maybe for care later in life.
Sure.
But having a son is often seen as, well, crucial to keeping up appearances. It's about avoiding losing face.
The whole concept of social standing, family honor.
Yes. How your family is perceived in the community. That social pressure to maintain status, it seems it often outweighs the personal desire for a daughter. It's powerful.
So women are using their autonomy, maybe autonomy gained through development, choices about their own bodies,
Right.
to choose the children who will essentially uphold the existing patriarchal structure. It's an agonizing loop.
It really is. That status craving, even if it seems illogical from the outside, it drives the behavior.
Okay, now the story takes a turn I really wasn't expecting. Looking west.
Ah, yes. The role of the Western population control movement.
Right, from the 50s through the 70s, funded by huge players, Ford Foundation, Population Council, USAID.
Yeah. This movement was deeply rooted in Malthusian ideas, the fear that population would outgrow resources.
But it wasn't just about resources, was it? There was a Cold War angle.
Oh, absolutely crucial. The thinking in Washington basically was that poverty, caused by overpopulation in developing countries, made them vulnerable to communism.
So population control wasn't just humanitarianism.
Not primarily, no. It was seen as a strategic anti-communist tool.
And within that context, this morally gray area, let's say, we see Western figures actually embracing sex selection, not seeing it as a problem, but potentially as a solution.
It's surprising, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yes, key figures in population control, people like Sheldon Segal, even Paul Ehrlich, who wrote The Population Bomb, they suggested sex determination could be used to control population growth.
How did that logic work?
It was based on something called the stopping rule. The theory was, look, if parents could choose to have the son they desire, they'd achieve their ideal family makeup faster and then just stop having kids.
So fewer kids overall, lower fertility rates.
That was the idea. They actually framed it as potentially more rational and ethical than some of the other more drastic population control measures being discussed then.
Rational and ethical. Wow, that sounds incredibly naive looking back.
Well, yeah. And this Western push, it acted as a kind of coercion catalyst, as the source material puts it.
How so?
Because these Western-funded population programs, especially in places like South Korea and China, they leaned really heavily on abortion to meet their targets, sometimes forced or, firmly administered abortions.
So the widespread use of abortion was already being normalized, even pushed by these programs.
Exactly. The cultural and medical infrastructure was basically being built. So when cheap, accurate sex determination tech arrived,
the system was already primed for sex-selective abortions on a massive scale. The procedures were available, the practice normalized.
Correct. And you saw these awful government slogans reinforcing it, especially in China. Things like, you can abort it, but you cannot give birth to it.
Horrifying. So the proliferation of abortion clinics, often built with Western money, essentially removed any ethical barriers just as the technology made selection easy.
That seems to be a key part of the sequence, yes. Which leads us to the consequences we're seeing now. Serious, immediate consequences.
This idea of Generation XY.
Right, this huge generation in many developing countries that is just overwhelmingly male.
And history seems pretty clear, doesn't it? Societies with way more men than women, they tend to be unstable, often violent.
It's a major demographic risk, a ticking time bomb, as you said earlier.
Yeah.
And there are studies linking high sex ratios to social problems, High testosterone levels and large groups of young, single men, especially those with poor prospects for marriage and family.
It correlates with risk-taking.
Increased risk-taking, delinquency, crime, aggression.
Yeah.
When you have millions of frustrated young men, bachelors, concentrated in one place, the potential for social instability is just immense.
We've seen hints of this before, historically.
We have.
You think about the founding myth of Rome, right? Romulus setting up a city of men and then having to basically steal wives, the Sabine women.
Right. Or even the American Wild West. If you look at the U.S. sex ratio map from 1870, the areas with a big male surplus in the West.
High levels of violence.
Exactly. Correlated strongly with high murder rates, general lawlessness.
So today, the most immediate impact is this marriage squeeze.
Yeah, intense competition for wives.
Yeah.
Younger men competing against older, maybe wealthier men.
And that scarcity drives this huge international bride trade.
It does. You see men from wealthier places like Taiwan or South Korea effectively buying wives from poorer countries. Vietnam, Thailand, the Philippines.
And what does that do to the communities the women come from, like Tan Loc and Vietnam mentioned in the sources?
Well, economically, it can bring benefits. The money sent back, the remittances from these foreign married daughters, has led to visible improvements, paved roads, better houses.
But the women themselves.
Their role is often just a channel for money. It benefits their birth family, maybe their husband's family, but their own status is only improved in a very crude sense. They're commodities almost.
And then there's the darker side of that scarcity, trafficking.
Absolutely. In these high sex ratio areas, the demand spikes for forced marriage, but also for prostitution.
The pressure falls hardest on these bare branches, right?
Yeah.
The Guangun in China.
Yes, that term itself, bare stick, it says so much about their perceived lack of status, lack of social roots without a family.
And this frustration, this ill-defined rage, as one source called it, stemming from being unable to marry, unable to meet family expectations.
It has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And sometimes it gets channeled into these aggressive, organized groups.
Like the Patriot Club in China.
Exactly. You see these groups, often full of young, unattached men, engaging in really militarized activities, war games, promoting this intense, sometimes belligerent nationalism. Their personal social frustration gets kind of redirected into political aggression.
So if we loop back to how countries tried to fix this, South Korea is a really important lesson, isn't it?
It really is. They did eventually crack down on sex-selective abortion, but it was sporadic.
And only temporarily effective, the sources say.
Right, because they didn't tackle the underlying cultural preference for sons comprehensively enough.
And that failure led to a completely unintended and, for some, disastrous consequence.
Yeah. It resulted in these politically charged moves to restrict abortion access overall. Trying to stop sex selection ended up threatening broader reproductive rights, what some feminists there called their worst nightmare.
It's a real warning, and it's crucial to remember this whole ethical mess isn't just happening over there.
No, not at all. Even in the U.S., sex selection is becoming more common through things like PGD, preimplantation genetic diagnosis during IVF.
Where you can choose embryos based on sex.
Right. And sperm sorting, too. Some doctors are quite open about seeing gender selection as a commodity for purchase.
And the U.S. doesn't have the same kind of regulatory body as, say, the U.K., does it?
No. The U.K. has a commission that specifically weighs the societal impacts of new reproductive technologies. The U.S. tends to adopt these things much more on a market basis, often without a broader discussion about the long-term demographic or ethical costs.
Which brings us right back to that core tension, doesn't it? Something that gynecologist Punit Bedai put so powerfully.
What was that again?
He said, basically, you can choose whether to be a parent. But once you choose to be a parent, you cannot choose whether it's a boy or girl, black or white, tall or short.
It's that fundamental conflict. The individual freedom, maybe the technological ability to choose the sex of your child.
Colliding head-on with the collective well-being, the demographic stability of the whole population.
Exactly.
So, as you think about everything we've discussed today, maybe consider this. When an individual choice, made possible by technology, can so drastically skew the future of entire societies, where do we draw the line? What responsibility do we have to the generations coming after us?